Hello, hello, and welcome back to the podcast. I've got a fantastic guest with me today. It's the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Adie McCarthy. Adie, thank you for coming on, buddy. Really appreciate it. So, you've been an agent now since 2006, which I imagine quite an interesting time to start being an estate agent because you had the sort
Yeah.
of boom times of 2006, 2007, and then sort of the lights turned off in like 2008. So, how was that? Take me back there.
Oh, yeah, good question. You are taking me back there as well. So I got into agency. Ultimately, what happened actually, I was working in the insurance industry when I first met my now wife, and was made redundant. And at the time, I don't know whether you're old enough to remember MFI, Chris, as a
I am, to be clear, I
you
am.
are okay. So she was working for. She got a job with MFI and was asked to basically um, in Colindale in North London. At the time, I was living in Cheltenham. So at that specific time, we decided we are going to move to Hertfordshire. I was just made redundant. And part of that transition to with EweMove was me finding another job. And like most estate agents, with the exception of a few who actually want to be an estate agent from the moment they can talk, the I fell into it, and I fell into it in a way not as in, oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to be an estate agent. What I decided to do was to write to 37 estate agents in and around Redbourne and St Albans. Got two interviews and two job offers, and the rest is kind of history. So I started life, as you say, in 2006. That's how I got into the industry, and sort of the natural progression from your sales negotiator, I suppose, junior neg, right through to owning my own business and where I am today, really. So, been an interesting transition from 2006 because, as you quite rightly pointed out, I came in right at the peak of boom. Home information packs came in, market did what it did, and I actually genuinely look back on those times in 2008, 9, 10 as the best years in estate agency for me because that's where I probably learned the most about the job.
Do you think it's important for an estate? I mean, obviously you can't choose which market you work in, but do you think kind of agents who can do well in the tough times have an advantage in the good times by default?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of agents and agencies were born post-COVID because they saw what was happening with the marketplace and kind of, oh, I kind of fancy a bit of that. And, they set up their agencies, but they don't know any different to how productive marketing and prospecting can be because not you still have to you still have to fight for listings in the good times, of course you do, but equally prospecting and marketing to find buyers are most important in the tougher times than they are in the good times, and that's pretty much where I cut my teeth and where I look back and go, do you know what, if you can make it in those times you can make it in the good times as well.
So talk me through. So you went through the sort of standard journey of sort of, junior negotiator,
Yeah.
negotiator, valuer, branch manager, all that
Right.
sort of stuff. What was the line in the sand where you're like, stuff this, I'm going to do it for myself? What happened there?
After 3 years, believe it or not, and it took me then another 3 to 4 years to actually, make that jump. But I felt pretty much ready. So what happened was, I was employed by a company in Hemel Hempstead, actually called Hemel Property, Home Counters Property, and just as my wife was offered a job in North London with MFI went bust, and she then was offered a job with Homebase, which were based in Milton Keynes. So we moved again 4 years later, which we moved to Rutland in and around Leicestershire, where we ended up settling down and on all the rest of it. But it was around that transition where I started to look at actually doing something myself. And I went from junior neg to branch manager into my next role in Rutland, working for an agency there, where I worked for 3 years as a branch manager. But it was those 3 years after we moved to Rutland where I actually thought, well, I'm running this business for somebody else now. I'll probably come on to it a bit later. Running a business and being an estate agent are two different things. And that was the bit I think that caught me out later in life when I started my own agency.
Well, but let's jump into that right now, shall we? So why delay? So what were the challenges then? So obviously you'd gone from being sort of a branch manager and sort of running the show, for
Yeah,
someone
that's
else's
right.
business to then working for yourself. So what were the
Yeah.
challenges you came up against in that situation?
Mainly cash flow, in all honesty. That was my biggest headache. When you run a business, when you're sort of salaried in PAYE, the money comes every month, at the end of the month. unless there's serious problems within that agency, you tend to get paid on time. Um, and when you go from that to, okay, there's enough money in the bank to pay bills for a month or two, maybe three, you never stop worrying about cash flow. And that's really where I learned about, how to run a business properly, financing, where to, coherently spend marketing. And also what was happening in the market today actually did, affect on what we were going to be paid in 3, 4, 5, 6 months time. So it was all the the proactive stuff that you do today really did matter from a cash flow perspective later down the road, and it was managing that. And then managing expectations of staff and so forth moving forward. But cash flow in particular, and I bang on about that to this particular day. Cash flow is the biggest killer in any business, in my opinion. And running a business and understanding that cash flow and making sure that you manage it coherently was the biggest lesson that I think I personally learnt doing it myself. I'm a great estate agent. I like to think that, winning listings, selling property, finding buyers, nurturing, and all the rest of it, being brilliant at that part of the job was great. But actually, you've still got to run a business. You've still got to earn money. You've still got to manage cash flow. You've still got to pay bills. And that was the biggest, that was my, as said, that was the biggest difference for me from going from PAYE to owning a business is actually you have to have a razor focus on your cash and cash flow. And that was the biggest thing for me.
So you launched your own estate agency business in Market Harborough,
Yeah.
and you kind of, you went from a cold start to a very good business very quickly. So
Yeah.
what were some of the tactics and sort of focuses you had from that sort of day one, oh my God, we've got nothing in the calendar, no listings, no nothing, through to where you kind of have a functioning business? So what was sort of the lead gen stuff and the diary stuff you had in there every day to kind of grow that business as quick as you did?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, like any young business, I guess, from birth, nobody knows you. Nobody knows what your business stands for because you've got no footprint out there. So, I mean, I utilize social media pretty much from day one as a leverage into that sort of brand awareness market locally. Um, luckily or unluckily, depending on how you look at it, when I launched the EweMove business during I mean, I launched in January 2020, COVID. What 6 weeks later, lockdown and all the rest of it. What I quickly realised during those times was all my local estate agent competitors during lockdown were shut for business because they were not on social media. So I made the decision to chuck a lot of money at social media during lockdown, from a brand awareness perspective, and it did me the world of good coming out of lockdown. We kind of had a bit of a digital footprint from local consumers, local customers, buyers, sellers, etc., who were reaching out for advice online, but their agent was closed, couldn't get hold of the agent, and all the rest of it. We were answering those questions for those people. So when we came out of lockdown, we kind of had a bit of momentum behind us. I mean, the biggest thing for me, and I still think it's probably more relevant today, is this social media marketing and prospecting certainly when you launch a business, but not launching it. When you launch a business, it's not about chucking a lot of mud at the wall and hoping some of it sticks. You've got to have a plan first and foremost, and also you've got to have a hyper focus on an area, become a master of an area, and then work out around that. And that's kind of how the business was born, really, through sort of digital marketing, so Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and yeah, and prospecting thereafter. Being a bit clever with prospecting as well, not just knocking on doors, but digitally prospecting clients through Facebook Marketplace, etc. It was a good way for us to get into the market and get that first, second, third, fourth, fifth listing.
I think that when you launch a business, there's quite a weirdly nice feeling about sort of the only way being up. You kind of go, well, I've got maximum attack here because
That's
I
right.
can't go
Yeah.
to -1 listing. So like, what's the worst that can happen if I just go for this kind
Yeah.
of maximum attack sort of thing? What's the worst that can happen?
That's very true. Yeah, well, where can you go when you're at the bottom? There's only one way up, isn't there? You're only looking one way. But it's very true. But ultimately, it's not just about taking any stock on as well when you go live, because you've got to quickly realize that your local market tends to have a perception on what you do, what type of property you're selling, and you kind of find yourself fitting into a market depending on what your first listings look like. If all you list is bungalows or terrace houses at the beginning of your journey, that's probably all you're going to end up attracting. So it's about boxing clever with that, but um, yeah, I'm very lucky in the sense that I utilize the local community groups as well via Facebook to get the name out there, and we got some listings very very quickly. In fact, my first listing was a £650,000 townhouse, so that worked quite well. And it kind of evolved out from there, and ultimately prospecting in particular, you never stop prospecting, even in the good times. Prospecting and marketing, even when the market's good, that's the best time to keep the foot on the gas with marketing. Because a lot of people go, oh, I've got a lot of listings, got a lot of brand awareness, got a lot of business. They take the foot off the marketing, but that's to me, that's the wrong thing to do because you'll feel the effect of that later on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think lots of people do that sort of over the kind of Christmas period as well. If the market has a bit of a downturn, they
Right.
think, oh, there's no point in doing marketing. The market is rubbish at the moment. It's like, yeah, but you're thinking of the future here. You're thinking 3, 4, 5, 6 months, a year down the
Yeah.
line, we're
Yeah,
going to have a
yeah.
big kind of divot in your business because you didn't do anything today.
Yeah, yeah, dead right. And it's so true. You see it. I've seen it in recent times as well. Well, where people go, well, we're not listing enough. The first thing we cut back on is our marketing. Actually, that's the first thing you should probably chuck more money at. Not
Yeah.
the first thing you should cut.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm not running fast enough, therefore I'm going to shoot myself in the foot.
yeah,
See if that
yeah,
helps.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
But,
interesting. It's interesting, but yeah,
but
the running a business side of things is like I said earlier, I think there's a lot of people that come into the industry, but whether it's licensing or franchising or whatever, or just starting their own business because they decide that's what they want to do. They have such a huge drive and focus on being a really good estate agent that they forgot that they've got to run a business. And that's the biggest failures that I see is people who, don't realize that there are numbers behind your business and you've got to be on top of them.
Yeah, I hosted a top agent, top performers group the other day, and literally my first opening sentence was that I said, you guys need to forget your estate agents today. We are talking about your business owners. It just
Spot on.
happens to be you list and sell properties. Let's look
Yeah.
at what's going on, sort of thing. And if I was your boss, what would I be looking at in your business? And it was a bit like, oh yeah, you've got a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So
yeah.
talk me through how long you ran your own business for, and
So,
then you transitioned away from it. Actually, you sold the
yeah.
business in the end. So talk me through sort of that
Yeah.
journey and that sort of part of your life.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. So we lived in Leicestershire and Rutland for 13 years. Very long story short, COVID. When COVID came, my wife had a big drive to move back near to her family, who 3.5 hours away up north. So we had tentative discussions even during COVID, because of COVID, about moving back to all Sam's and my wife's family. Fast forward three and a half years from COVID, we actually decided to make that move. And that also meant, because I'd obviously built up the value of the business at that point, we had a business to sell, we had a house to sell, and we had to find schools for kids and so forth. So stressful enough just selling a house when you're moving, 3.5 hours away, but selling a business and a house was doubly as stressful. But ultimately, yeah, selling it. So, because I think for me, we knew we were going to be making that move at some point anyway. I had, a bit of a focus on making sure that we were building up a value in the business as an asset to sell on. And ultimately, you turn to rentals as residual income to give you, a tangible asset, I suppose, and building up a huge pipeline over time. And then actually, as I was making the move, well, we were making the move up north. Um, yeah, I found a couple of buyers for the business in the end, and ended up selling to a franchise neighbour in EweMove, and they bought the business. They bought the business from me, and away they've gone really. So, and then we've ended up moving to Skipton, and I transitioned from business owner to business development manager for EweMove, where I was there for 18 months, and then recently in the last sort of 5 6 months with Fine and Country.
So full disclosure then, how often do you pop onto Rightmove and just see how the old business is getting on?
Oh, the old business. I did it this morning, actually. That's the first time I've done it probably for a number of weeks before Christmas. But
Yeah.
do you know what? Rightmove's funny because we've moved house, in 19 years. I think we moved house about 4 or 5 times, and I still have alerts set up for Rutland, sorry, for Redbourne and St Albans. that was nearly 20 years ago, but I still get the alerts coming through. I just can't switch them off.
You never get away from it. You wonder why Rightmove's figures are so high. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
So talk me through. So you're now at FNC. So for those that
Yeah.
can't see Adie, Adie is wearing an FNC branded t-shirt with an FNC branded background. And I made a joke saying, "Have you got an FNC Gilet?" And he said, "Yes, I have actually got
Yes,
an
I
FNC Gilet." So
have.
fully drinking the Kool-Aid to say the least. So talk me through what's the difference between the top performers at Fine and Country and the ones that
Ooh.
kind of want to be in that sort of top form. What are those kind of separate sort of the have and the
Yeah.
have-nots in the Fine and Country network?
That's a brilliant question. I've got to tell you because you know, and I'll tell you for why it's a brilliant question. Ultimately, I think a lot of people who are brilliant estate agents, and they decide they want to deal with the upper quartile sector of the market. A lot of people become, I suppose, not afraid to make that jump because the numbers, the size of the properties are bigger and the numbers are bigger that you're dealing with, so they kind of hold back. What I see is the most consistent agents that I see who perform really well, they do not deviate from their own marketing strategy and they will not compromise on what they offer. And that's the difference. I think the top performers, they have a plan. This is their marketing strategy. This is what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And they will not deviate from that. That is absolutely crystal clear. And the biggest reason for that is, I think, not just in estate agency, but successful businessmen, if you like, successful brands and businesses, people who really believe in the product they're selling. You take Dragon's Den. People who go on Dragon's Den and they're trying to get investment for their products that they've created. The people who walk away with an investment are normally the ones that are so passionate about what they've done. They sell the benefits so well to the dragons because this is the best thing since sliced bread, if it's sliced bread. This is the best thing since sliced bread. They believe in the product, they can articulate it well. And even if they don't walk away with a deal, they tend to walk away with a job offer. And I think, you take that and you put that into, that sort of ethos into an estate agent who sat in front of a client on a sofa. The ones that believe in their product, who can articulate it well and articulate the value, most importantly, in what they do and what they can bring to the table well, are normally the ones that will get the business. So the top performing agents, I think, are genuinely the agents who passionately believe in their product.
Hmm. And that kind of led me quite nicely to my next question with regard to making sure agents get consistent valuations into their business. But I'd imagine that if you've got that sort of rock solid marketing process set in place and that rock solid sort of presentation, and this is how we do it process, then that sort of consistency in the main will kind of follow in track after that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So in my business, we used to on one of the whiteboards we had in the back office was we used to have the I used to have the words CAP, and they stood for consistent and persistent. So whether it was social media, you have to be consistent and persistent with social media, whether it was marketing, whether it was appraisals, whatever we were doing and however we were doing it, in my business then everyone had to be consistent and they had to be persistently consistent. And I think that's the key bit. You take social media, for example. I'm always asked all the time about social media. How do you make social media work? Well, social media is different for a lot of people, but as long as you're consistent and you're persistent at social media, whatever your goal is, you'll achieve it. But you can't do it without being consistent. You just can't. And it's the same in marketing, same in your pre-appraisal process, your post-appraisal process. You've got to be consistent at it and you've got to be persistent at it. And if you are, it will work and it will work for you.
Yeah, it's a bit like playing a new sport, isn't it? If I wanted to learn tennis, which I've absolutely no aspiration to do in any way, shape, or form, but hypothetically, if I did, if I spend 1 hour a week, I'm probably not going to be a very good tennis player. If I spend 3 hours a day trying to learn tennis, I'll probably be pretty good at tennis by a couple of months' time, sort of thing. So it's kind of what you put into it and that consistency over and over again that adds up over time.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm too old to.
Too much running around for me, mate.
Yeah,
Too much running
I
around.
don't know. I don't mind the running. I run quite. Yeah, I do a lot of miles a week actually. But that's another story. But yeah, but you're right. If you're learning to do anything, a new skill or whatever it is, and it sounds like a silly thing. Just be consistent and persistent. But you've got to be because if you're not, your business you got to have a vision for your business firstly. What do you want to achieve? What is your goal this year? What do you want to earn this year? How are you going to do it? Because if your goal is to earn £1 million, okay, that's fine. We can then scale that back and attribute how many appraisals, how many listings appraisals that you need to achieve to get that. So let's start with the end and then work out, reverse engineer it back so we know what we need to do and break it down every day in order to achieve what we want to achieve. But you can't do that unless you're consistent. You just can't. It's impossible.
So you talked about conversion rates there, and you kind of alluded to kind of pre-market appraisal and post-market
Yeah.
appraisal. So for an agent who's listening to this, who's thinking, yeah, I book in market appraisals and I convert, 30%, 40%, for example. I'd love to get like 50%, 60%, 70%, whatever it may be. What are some of the things that you can put in place to improve your chance of getting that instruction?
It's a good question. It depends on what they're doing pre-appraisal. I'm a firm believer in you win 80% of your listings on what you do before you even arrive at the door to value a home. Your approach to that appraisal matters. Everything that you do or don't do, as the case might be, is, that's that ultimately where I think, if you look at conversion rates with some agents and, from the role that I do now and have done for a few years now, if you're looking at conversions, I'm actually looking at what you're doing before you even set through a door. Let's see what we can put right there. Let's understand your process, and let's make that process better. So you've got the best chance when you're at the property. And then when you're at the property, let's look at some of the questions that you're asking. So some challenges that you can overcome. Agents don't like to be challenged, and that fascinates me because this is ultimately the industry we're in. We're always challenged with something in this industry, but agents will not like to be challenged. They don't like to be challenged on fee. They don't like to be challenged on the marketing price or the valuation figure that they've given. They don't like to be challenged on their marketing. But when you look into those processes, and like I said, most importantly, the pre-appraisal process that will help you understand, where you are, what you're doing well and what you're not doing so well and what we can tweak. But also from a conversion perspective, it's not just about. I was having a conversation with somebody only on Monday about this. The you'll be familiar with the triangle with motivation, fee, and price, right? So you match two. You if you're sat in front of somebody and motivation, price, or fee, if you can match two of the three, you take the listing. And I was trying, helping somebody understand that process, because they were listing properties that were too much money. They've been dictated to by the seller. So like, okay, this is old school agency here, but let's start here to try and help convert some of the properties because you only need to convert an extra, what, eight, nine a year in the numbers that we're talking that's 100K difference in terms of revenue. So let's adopt this process. Let's look at your pre-appraisal process. Look at this process as well, and let's put that right.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, I sold a property a while ago and I had three agents out to value the property. And yeah, two of them just turned up on the day, hello, Mr. Webb sort of thing. The one that actually got the business, funny enough, they turned up, same day as I booked the market appraisal, pre-market appraisal letter. It had their glossy magazine inside. It had their testimonial booklet, that opens up to lots of pictures of them with reviews and flowers and bottles of champagne and whatever else it may be. That they weren't the best valuation on the day. The value was all right in the grand scheme of things. They got the business.
Yeah,
So,
well, that it just there you go. I mean, it just goes to prove I so in Skipton, this is all related to property. I can assure you. Just go with me. So in Skipton, I coach an under sixes and an under nines, so they're sort of 5 and 8 year old football team. Um, and they've got one remit the kids have got one remit with me in terms of coaching is the answer to any question that you ask me is never no because. It's always yes if, right? So can I go in goal? No, because we got a goalkeeper. Can I play a striker? No, because we got a striker. Yes, you can if you do this, that, and the other. And the thing, the same thing is adoptable in property. The answer is never no because. Will you bend on your fee? Can you do it cheaper fee? No, because that's my fee. Yes, if blah 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 blah. So if you adopt the yes if approach rather than a no because, it just sort of helps inset a bit more of a positive mindset than it does on a negative. Because like I say, agents don't like being challenged, and the go-to answer for any agent is always no, which is wrong.
I really like that. I really like that a lot. So you mentioned fees there, and let's talk about money. So I always find it interesting when you talk to agents about fees. So I work with agents who do a whole range of the marketplace, agents from sort of 2% plus
Yeah.
through to probably just over 1% sort of direction. And, the monetary income of those will anywhere from sort of 20 grand a deal through to 5 grand a deal, sort of roughly speaking. So I always find it funny when you get those agents in a room together, have a conversation about what each other are charging, sort of thing. So obviously agents are usually kind of quite cloak and dagger about, oh, I, don't want to tell anyone what I'm charging, sort of thing. So talk me through some of the tactics you put in place to kind of increase the fees going through. Because obviously, Fine and Country aren't exactly a cheap brand. And I'm
No.
sure, as an average fee for the business, I'm sure it's a really decent level, especially when it comes to a monetary amount as well. So if people are prepared to pay tens of thousands of pounds for the experience, because they've got a larger, more expensive property, what are we doing to kind of make that fee as high as we possibly can do and make it a reality for the business?
Oh, yeah, good question. So, first of all, in F&C in particular, the marketing is absolutely outstanding anyway. And going back to what I said a minute ago, as an agent, you've got to believe in your product. And if you don't believe in your marketing product that we provide agents, then you're not going to be able to articulate, the value in the fee. So that's one thing. If you from a straightforward fee challenge, it's quite simple. You're a 2% agent or a 2.5% agent up against someone who's going to do it for 1%. So I'm sorry, AD, you're not going to get, unless you're prepared to reduce your fee, I'm going to give the listing to so and so because they're only 1%. You can then fight about how good your marketing is and how wide you're going to, you're going to cast your net into national waters to find a buyer. We're going to cast our net into international waters as well to find another. So we've got, we're fishing in an additional pond here to help you find a buyer. And if you're still struggling with fee, it comes back to, and again, I had this conversation quite a bit with agents is, simply ask the seller if all agents charged 3%, forget the 1% for a minute, just ask the seller if all agents charged you 3%, who will you choose? And they will inevitably say you. Okay, well I'm humble and flattered. Can I ask why you would choose me? Yes, because you do this, that, and the other. Now, the this, that, and the other are the real reasons why they want to use you. So you're plucking out from them the real reasons why they're interested in your service. So now you can go back and have that fee challenge conversation again. So not if all agents charge the same, who would you choose? If all agents charge you 3%, who would you choose? You. Thank you. Why? Because you do this and you do that and you promote here. Well, now do you understand why we command the fee we command? Yes, I do. It's just a quite simple fee challenge conversation to get into, but it goes back to believe in your product. We have a phenomenal marketing machine in F&C, no doubt about it. But it's not just about the marketing, it's about where we get buyers from, or you as an agent, where are you going to get your buyer from? If you're putting on the portals and you're praying, then you've got a problem. So, you need to articulate that as well to be able to showcase the added value. But fee challenges can quite simply be a conversation about understanding specifically why that consumer or why that seller wants to use you. What are the reasons? Well, these are the questions to ask to find that out. And now you can go back and have a fee conversation.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Yeah, and the meeting I was having the other day with the top performing guys, we had a conversation about fee, as you always do. And I was actually saying to the guys, look, if you're worried about your fee side of things, you've got bigger issues because, really you should be going there, like you said, about the confidence of your product and go, I am the best agent in town because I do this, I do this, I do this. You'd be an idiot not to use me, sort of thing. And unless you can be kind of that confident in what you're producing going forward with, go back a step, look at your photography, look at your floor plans, look at your presentation, look what you do your marketing wise, until the point where you're like, it's an absolute no-brainer to go with me. I'm charging you 1.5%, but really I should be charging like this. It's so good. You're almost like, I'm almost giving it away at that sort of price. So if you actually
Absolutely.
take it back a step and actually make it as good as you possibly can do, you'll be proud as punch. And people go, I'd go on the market with you. And you're like, really? Like, is there a head injury in the house sort of thing? Like, it seems so obvious that this is great sort of thing.
Yeah, well, the thing is as well, I think a lot of agents get too consumed on their appraisals of showing up and throwing up. So they turn up and they can't wait to spill out of their mouth exactly how good they are, exactly how many properties they've sold. The pie charts might come out at that stage, and you got to use me because I'm blah 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 blah. Okay, great. All you've done is just chuck a load of stuff at them, and they're not going to remember any of that. What you really need to find out, it's a fact-finding mission, right? So, why am I here? Where are you going? What timescales are you working to? It's about you, not the property, first and foremost. So that, talk to them like human beings, understand on a personal level. That's the level of communication that you need. Then you find out the real reasons behind why you're sat in front of them. Now you need to find out what specifically is it that they're interested in your business. Now, if you can do that, you can then articulate your fee because you've understood exactly where their pain threshold is. Um, and again, in terms of closing for business is another one because we're very good as an industry of turning up to value. People who call them valuations, I've got a problem with anyway, because you're not there to value a house first and foremost. So if you call an evaluation, if you're calling a market appraisal a valuation, that's a red flag to me, because all what that does from a mindset perspective is in the agent, I'm there to value. So they turn up and they value, and then they leave business on the table because they go, right, great, I'll catch up tomorrow with you. Or I'd need, what's the next step? I need to talk to Mister. Great, okay, I'll catch up. When's a good time to catch? They don't ask for business. We don't get anywhere in this world unless you ask. You ask. This is the thing. Why don't we ask for business? Why don't we? Someone who's looking to move, let's say, for 2026, probably in reality needs to be on the market today. But if you're out valuing someone's house and they've told you, well, we're looking to move towards the end of the year or early next year, right, great. Let me help you understand the timescales and what the industry is working to right now. And it might be, because it is, 4 to 5 months conveyancing time at the moment, 74 days to find a buyer on top of that. That's assuming, we're successful on the first attempt and it hasn't fallen through. So actually, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, if you want to move for Christmas or next year, you actually need to be on the market probably at the back end of last year. Well, I wouldn't do that because that's a whole other conversation. But you needed to be on the market today.
Yep.
So, let's signpost people actually into coming to market because all they do is they take on a property and they take on that property in the summer, put themselves under pressure because they've only got 6 months to move. And in this market, which is, a very, very good positive market, by the way, but it's the conveyancing timescales that are the problem. So, we need to signpost time frames with sellers, and that will help win us listings more quickly.
Yeah, I think that the general public, I've read this stat a long time ago, generally believe that from offer acceptance through to handing over keys is like 6 to 8 weeks, generally speaking. That's kind of
Yeah,
you interview people on the high street. So automatically, as an agent, you're on the back foot because people in their mind, before they even talk to you, think, oh, it's 6 to 8 weeks, so therefore I'll be in by Easter or whatever it may be, sort of thing. And then you rocking up and saying, oh, yeah, it's actually going to be like 4 or 5 months, sort of thing. So I actually went for dinner with a friend the other day who's just in the process of selling an investment property, or he is now anyway. And we had that exact same conversation. I was like, when do you need the money from your investment place? And it's like, oh yeah, I need it by, May, June. And I was like, well, what are you doing here then? I was like, you need to get on with this. Like, it's a
May,
flat as well,
June.
mate. You've
Yeah.
got a leasehold on there. Like, you need to be cracking on with this. He's like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, like now.
Just goes to show, doesn't it, that we don't educate. That's the problem. We're too busy turning up on our listing appointments and throwing up. We don't educate, and we need to educate because if you can educate clients, fees shouldn't be a problem really if you educate them in the right way. And also, like I say, why are you moving? Is it divorce, extended family, bigger house? What is it? Identify these reasons so it can help you with your pitch. Like I say, going back to the fee conversation, is you've got to believe in your product first and foremost. There are definitely certain questions you can ask to counteract a fee charge, or even ratchet your fee if necessary. Okay, well, I am, like I said, it's not no because it's yes if. So yes, yes, I'll happily do something on my fee if we achieve this on your asking price. If we achieve X on your asking price, my fee is Y, and so forth, and ratchet your fee up. There's more than one ways to showcase how you can do business. And I think as agents, we're like, no, we're 1%, that's it. Great. You need to box a bit clever.
So let's talk about brand and awareness. Obviously, F&C is a huge brand, but obviously lots of agents listening to this won't be a F&C franchisee or sort of partner agent. So talk me through the sort of importance and how some tactics to kind of grow your brand in the local area. So if you were going to start your sort of Adie McCarthy estate agents today
Yeah.
in a town in the UK, how would you get to the point where people knew who you are, where they're like, that's Adie, he's the estate agent?
Yeah, so good question. I would so the way I'll do that is if I'm launching today my own agency, I will be looking at, well, first and foremost, all the low-hanging fruit, and I've heard you talk about low-hanging fruit many times on your podcast and your LinkedIn profile. Low-hanging fruit is definitely an area of interest because Rightmove purport 50% of stock on the market is going to switch agents or come off market. Huge opportunity first and foremost to go after the stock there. Up and above that, and the key bit is something that I've taught for a few years now, is we as agents need to be leveraging other agents' new stock the minute it comes to market for our own stock. I'm not talking about touting a new listing that comes to market today. I'm talking about leveraging the area in which that new listing sits in. So, um, typical example of nine new properties come to the market today in Skipton, where I'm sitting. That's nine streets, that's nine roads, that's nine places in the town that I can go and tout for my own new stock. There's nothing worse as an agent. You put a for sale board up, you've done all the hard bit, you've got the listing, your for sale board goes up today. 2 weeks later, a competitor puts one up down the road, and you haven't been invited out to it. So the way to get around that and ultimately sort of landlock your own listings is if an agent puts a property on the market today, go and tout that road and that street for your own stock, i.e., this property has come to market at X value. Whatever lead gen tool you want to use, whether it's a digital or an algorithm valuation tool, whatever it is, go and leverage the street for your own stock. The minute a new because the process is quite clearly, if my neighbour puts their house up for sale today, I come home and see a for sale board. I'm going to do two things when I get home: jump onto Rightmove to see how much John's put his house up for sale next door, look at the price and go, Jesus Christ, have you seen how much he's asking for his house? I wonder how much ours is worth. But if there is some collateral through my letterbox from a local agent to say, oh, look, there's a house on the up for sale next door to you. Here's a value your home, link here. Click this link and get your own valuation. So you go through two processes. How much has John put his house up for sale and how much is mine worth? So if you do that times 50 in the street, you're going to get a brand awareness, and that's a very, very quick way really of ultimately winning your own listings in a short space of time. I would never ever stop. This is one thing we did particularly well in the business I had. We never stopped leveraging new listings for our own stock. We never would, yes, we'd still set up our prospecting going out on your typical triggers, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 threes withdrawals. But we got more listings from leveraging new agents listings than we did anything else.
Love that. Love that a lot. So, talk to me about motivation and accountability, because obviously you look after a fair amount, I'd imagine, of F&C offices now, and you talked earlier about sort of consistency and sort of having that sort of repetitive approach. What about with agents that sort of struggle with that? So, for example, they might be motivated for, new year, new me, and do it for the first couple of months or so, but then after sort of a period of time, agency takes a long time to pay off, so their kind of motivation start to wane. What sort of things can you put in place to kind of keep that motivation at the right level, or at least keep that consistency going if the motivation does wane slightly?
Yes, you're full of the good questions today, aren't you? So that would be down to, I think ultimately everyone needs a plan and a business plan. It could be a business plan that's 36 pages thick if you really want, or it can be a business plan that's, one line on a A4 piece of paper. Whatever your plan is, that needs to be your plan. So I think with agents in particular, and I've seen this a lot over the years, is if agents are not listing quick enough, then their motivation ultimately drops. Because if you haven't listed a property for 3 months, you're not going to get paid, for an additional, 6 months after that. So, from a cash flow perspective, going back to what I was talking earlier, you quickly realize you've got to sell property quickly in order to get that cash coming in. And I think with agents who don't do that, their motivation in particular drops because they don't believe in the process. It's not working. I've tried it for 3 weeks. 4 weeks. I haven't got a listing. Oh, right. I'm not getting, I'm not doing, I'm going down the gym for, now I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. If you can keep them accountable to a plan, you can keep their motivation up. And ultimately, if they haven't got listings, it doesn't mean that they're not earning business, as long as they are consistently posting out on social media, for example, making the local area aware of what they're doing. I'm not necessarily talking like, a day in the life of an estate agent on an Instagram story, but that level of digital marketing does help keep motivation up. Um, but ultimately, for me, it comes down to what is your plan. When I'm having meetings, past and present, it comes down to what's your plan? Where are you in your plan? What do we need to keep you on par with your plan? And ultimately, if it's listings, it's listings, but let's stick to the plan. Don't scrap the plan after 4 weeks just because you haven't listed a property. Make sure that you've got something that you can read every single day in front of you. That should hopefully keep you motivationally high, and secondly, I can hold you account to whatever you want, whatever your plan is. So, like I said, your business plan doesn't have to be a Bible. It can just be one line. As long as you've got something written down, then we can have a proper conversation.
Yeah, it's almost that logical brain versus illogical brain, isn't it? Because the logical brain kind of goes, well, look, we knew we wouldn't list a property for the first month or 2 months or whatever it may be, and it's kind of part of the business plan sort of thing. But then, sort of as time goes by, kind of the chimp brain gets louder and louder, going, yeah, I know
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
I know that, but
Absolutely. There's a real. So one of the things I still do to this day, and I've done every day. Once a day, I write a motivational quote down on my. I've got a Kindle Scribe. So every single day, it might be just something I've seen on social media that day. It might be a song lyric. It might be a movie quote. I always write something motivational down in the time. One of the one of my most favorite motivational quotes is Lionel Messi, perceived as the best footballer of all time. And he actually says, it's taken me 17 years and 114 days to be an overnight success. Yeah, that's agency for you. You've got to be consistent. You've got to keep doing it. It will come, but you've got to keep doing it.
I love that. And so, final question. We've had lots of good questions today. So, final one. Hopefully, we'll keep the bar as hard as we've had already. So, what's one mistake that you see estate agents making, and what do you think that they would fix that problem today would make an immediate change to their business?
Immediate change to their business. That is that is a good question, actually. Yeah, that's 4 or 5 today. So the one thing they could fix to make an immediate, so on that, I would say first and foremost, if you're not utilizing the power of video, I would utilize the power of video. I think th it's probably not an immediate fix, but you have to have a personal brand in your business. Okay, so Fine and Country, fantastic, synonymous in the industry. People know and love Fine and Country, but you still have to have a personal brand within your business. People buy into people, so you have to have that level of consistency on social media with your face and presenting and getting yourself out there. I think you're a prime example of this, Chris. Never used to stand in front of a camera. Now I can't get you off my news feed on
Sorry
Facebook.
about that.
Yeah. So, that's personal brand for you. And I think every agent needs a personal brand in their business. The logo, the brand will get you so far. You as people and as a person will make a big difference. But also, like I say, the other thing I think is going back to your original question is always, always, always ask what you're doing well as much as what you're not doing well. I.e., I've lost a listing because of the agents, they've gone with another agent who they bought the property from. If you've got a listing and you've won a listing, we don't ask the question on why we've been instructed. By understanding the answer to that question, thank you very much for instructing me. Can I ask what it was that compelled you to give me the listing or give me the business? Yes. And listen to the answer, because what you'll learn more from that than you will do the no's, the no's, the no's. You'll learn more from the yeses than the no's.
Love that. Adie, you've been a brilliant guest. Thank you so much for coming on, mate.
You're
It's been
welcome.
brilliant.
Good to talk to you.
Thank you, buddy.